Tony Dricchio, 7 Harmony Lane. I'm the chairman of the Pitney Farm Transition Committee. I'd just like to give you a short report. We feel kind of insignificant after all this great work that our people have done and the young fellows that were here. I think what we're doing is carrying out all of the wishes of the committee, as we've heard over the last several meetings. We plan to have 2 open houses. As time is slipping, they're getting pushed away a little bit, but maybe by the end of September and early October, at worst, it'll be both of them in early October. Those would be open houses similar to what was done previously. I was not on those, but it would be a tour of about an hour of the facility with various dove scents. I'm working with Steve Mountain on that. We hope that before Thanksgiving to have the first town meeting that the Township Committee has requested. Eric Sletland has gotten the services, and I don't know the person's name, of a facilitator who does municipal planning work, and he would MC the meeting, so to speak, so that we have some form of order from all of the comments that are coming and focus the comments. We hope, and I'll work with Steve Mountain on that and get appropriate dates, mutually acceptable dates rather. We hope that would happen before Thanksgiving, because in reality the year is gone after Thanksgiving. We talked about a second meeting where those suggestions would then be coalesced down to maybe 5 or so and presented to the Township Committee. We hope that meeting would be, unfortunately, early now in the next year. But those are the plans. The last item is that there will be new people joining the effort at Pitney Farm. Once the committee approves those people, then we'll have an organizational meeting to restructure the committee and move forward. So that's about where we are.
Tony, as soon as those dates, you have those dates, we'd like to have them so we can...
You get them as soon as, you get them as soon as we're waiting for Eric. So as soon as you get it, we'll get them. Because we need to go public in terms of announcements. So we're working diligently on that.
Seeing no one else.
Hold on. I thought there'd be a mob scene. I really didn't understand what your... Dan Williams, Foundry Oakland, sorry. I think everybody's probably familiar with this letter that was published in the Observer Tribune from the 4 mayors. And in my perfect little world, ideally, I would really... I mean, I'm like flabbergasted at the alienation that's been created amongst the 4 mayors. I mean, should be discussing, I mean, my primary concern is shared services, as I think most of the citizens are. And I just see this breakdown in communications as irreparable. Now, I'm not sure what you're talking about, your plan is moving forward, but I would really like that letter dissected point by point and you to respond to each of the points that they're making. I think it's really important for the record that you do that. That's just my opinion. And I'm also wondering how the other committee members feel about the action that you've taken. I watched that early meeting with the, I guess it was the regional board of education, whatever, Westmore. And I don't know, it was my impression, I don't know, that was kind of antagonistic on your part. I'm talking to you, Mayor, and with all due respect, Mayor Chilpatini. It's very antagonistic. That's just my impression. It seems like you don't want to work with them. I hope I'm wrong, but I just see this problem as irreparable. We're farther from shared services than we've ever been at this point. I don't get it. You got to make peace and reopen, open dialogue with these people. That's the only way we're going to achieve that. Agree? And can you do it?
I agree, and I'm not going to go point for point in that letter, because I think that would do more harm than good. I am attempting to work with my constituents. I don't think that a war of words in the newspaper is the way to go. So
Are those untruths in the newspaper? Can I ask you that, in your opinion?
I really don't want to comment, but I think I commented before in the newspaper. I made a presentation as to what went on at the meeting. I don't agree with those comments, but I'm not going to get into tit for tat with them. I don't think that's correct. I think what we need are positive steps. We've had setbacks before on shared services. I don't agree with you that we're moving backwards. I think in the 4.5, you asked my question, okay? In the 4.5 years that I've been on this township committee, I have seen an organization known as GEM. You've heard of GEM? Government Efficiency Movement.
Okay.
All right, Courage to Connect. There are a lot of organizations that are springing up and are trying to accomplish shared services. We have made progress. We will continue to make progress. But I'd like to remind you that the New York Jets haven't won a Super Bowl in 43 years. They're working at it. This is a very, very difficult subject, a very difficult thing to accomplish. Chester Borough and Chester Township tried to merge. It didn't work. We have to say, if we want something, we have to be willing to work for it. It's what's inside us. I'm not packing up and leaving. This township committee, I believe, is committed to shared services. We have to work at it. We're continuing to work at it. I don't think we're losing the battle. We're making progress. But this is not something that's going to happen overnight.
I disagree.
Okay?
Hi, Linda Fairchild, Cemetery Lane, Brookside. I think what's going on is that there's a perception, and the perception is reality. There's a perception that if this has happened with the school board, this issue with the other towns and the mayors not cooperating with our town, what's going to happen with shared services? What's going to happen with shared services with DPW, with the library? That's the perception that the public is very concerned about. And that's something I think that the Township Council has to communicate to the public, that we're making strides in this area. We're trying to make efforts in that area. Because perception is reality. And I think there is a big problem with what, when that letter was published. And unfortunately, that is what the perception and what the concern is of the public.
Michael Merritt, Mountainside Road. I want to second some of the concerns that have been raised, and I'd like to address the entirety of the Township Committee, because so much of the discussion seems to have been focused on discussion between the mayors, when of course each of you is equally responsible for the governorship and our representation on this body. I'm concerned about the tone of discourse between our governing body and those of our natural partners, our forced partners at this point in the regional school district. I think everybody acknowledges objectively that the funding formula is unfair, and that's a problem that needs addressing. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to ensure that every dollar that's spent gets the best possible value for all the students of the joint district. And I don't believe it's useful to be looking at every piece of chalk and worrying whether we got our 32 cents out of that piece of chalk. Once we have, we have a committee which is running that to the school board, and they need to be running that together as a team. And I believe that our representation there, and now seconded by the discourse that's happening between the mayors, leading to a very negative and actually failure-prone process where we'll just end up arguing over whether our piece of the boat is still afloat. We're in this together. We need to work together, and as the previous speakers have said, this colors all of our opportunities to partner together. No town will be willing to give up control over any of their services unless they can trust each other to work together to ensure, if we're working in a joint DPW, that we'll work to make sure we maximize the value that we get out of DPW. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have a plethora of school superintendents and superintendents of separate DPWs that we're going to have to be funding and paying for their retirement, and the costs will continue to be exorbitant. I encourage you to step up to your responsibility as members of our township committee and to try to reset the level of discourse and rebuild trust and try to find a way we can cooperate together, solve the problems of fair funding, but also make sure that in the meantime we're not so eager that in addressing that problem that we throw the baby out with the bathwater and fail our children. I'm concerned about the idea of a separate open meeting. Frankly, based on the letter and the tone of discourse, I'm unclear whether the meeting that you called for, Mr. Mayor, is a meeting of the Township Committee to address the question of school funding, or is a meeting of the Citizens for Cheap Schools, Citizens for Better Schools, a local group that you said, or I understood from the other mayor's letters that you are a proud member of, and which I believe has focused the discourse very narrowly and single-mindedly on the question of funding, raised issues of quality without addressing real substantive steps we can take to improve instruction, and is, I think, taking this entire debate completely off the tracks. So I encourage each of the 5 of you to step up and take responsibility for getting us back on track to work together with our neighbors.
I think we've done that. Thank you.
Maybe mention one thing, since I happen to be speaking with the mayor of Mendham Borough at Labor Day Parade, and despite that letter, and we do not want to go into a tit for tat on that letter at all, we are moving forward with Mendham Borough on a number of issues, and we're going to be meeting again with them. So if that gives you any comfort at all, we can't go into the details of that, but that is a fact, and so I think that's a positive sign.
Mayor, I've been out of town, so I've been a little bit out of the loop on this. I read the paper just yesterday or the day before. But I think the mayors from the other towns, for some reason, are communicating with me. I guess because I had a relationship with them and worked with them on shared services in the past. I think the issue right now, unfortunately, has come down to personalities rather than ideas or thinking. I think in order to break this problem, I would suggest that maybe the Township Committee consider making our deputy mayor. Let's try again. Maybe it's a way to, sometimes you can keep hitting your head against the wall, and the wall isn't going to move, but sometimes you've got to find a way to go around that wall. And I would like to suggest that maybe Mr. Tolley reach out to the mayors and see if we can't get dialogue going again. I think it's too important, and shared services to the people in the audience that are represented, I know are right now set back a couple of years. We have to get together, we have to get talking, we've got to put our personalities and our egos behind us and step forward. And I'm suggesting this because I think it will work, and I think it will make things go easier. Right now, because it's become personal, and I understand it's wrong to be personal, it's become personal that we need to find a way to solve the problem. And I would make this suggestion, and this is my opinion and my thought, and that's, as I say, I haven't been involved in all the nitty-gritty of this, because I was stuck in the Catskills and couldn't get here. So, that's what I say.
Thank you, Mr. Creed. This is hearing persons present. Does anyone else wish to be heard?
Brian Phelan, commenting on the statement made by Mr. Dahl relative to his conversations with Mayor Henry, apparently at the parade. And as I recall, you had indicated that we were working with them on a variety of issues. I know of one where they proposed to us a willingness to openly discuss shared police services, and have countered with the idea that they would be more than happy to provide such services to the Township of Mendham. And what disturbs me is that Mr. Henry has advised me that there's been no one on this committee who's gone to him to express an interest to listen to what their comments or thoughts are. So, Mr. Dahl, if in fact you are aware that you have open discussions with them, here is one item that you should perhaps pursue, or some other member of the committee, because they are willing, the Mendham Borough Council is willing to discuss that issue with us. All it takes is for someone on this committee to go forward and listen to what they have to say.
Thank you.
Bob Holland, 20 Norwood Trail, and it's been about 3 years since I came to the Township Committee with the issue there. I just want to briefly mention, and that's the water problem at the end of Norwood Trail. Now, about 3 years ago, there was a remediation made on an easement through my property to alleviate that problem. I know that the Hurricane Irene was, extraordinary, and maybe was one in 100 years or 500 years or whatever, but there have been backups continuing after that easement had been remediated. I'm concerned because that water gets about 4 or 5 feet deep. In some places it's probably even higher than that. In Irene, it went further than it ever had done before. The good news is it subsides quicker than it did before. The bad news is that it's still a problem. And I think that the township could have a liability here. Over the past 25 years, 3 cars have been destroyed in that. Fortunately, no lives have been lost. But you could not stand in that water when it starts to move. So I think you need to readdress the work that was done. I'm not an engineer. It seems to me that whatever was done, not working properly. But I think you should really take another look at that. And I know there are a lot more pressing issues in the township at the moment. But that's one that should be on the docket at some point to revisit. And I would like to say, finally, that the road department has been terrific in cleaning up that mess every time it happens. One of the major problems is they have 2 catch basins, and when the debris we've had, they clog up very quickly. And I personally have gone out, and one of my neighbors, and we cleaned that out even when the water started to subside, and it goes down. But it is still a problem, and I just think you need to be aware of that.
Okay. And this is the stormwater.
This is a stormwater. It's all the water that comes off the Pitney Farm, Brockton Drive, Norwood Trail, Route 24. It all goes down the bottom of Norwood Trail. There is an easement there. They put in a new pipe, which was 48 inches. I think the design may have been somewhat amiss, but I can't make the judgment on that. But at least it's still a problem. Finally, unfortunately, I think the police sort of rely on my calling them to tell them to come up, put up barricades so people won't go in there. Well, if I'm not there, that probably doesn't happen. Some of the other neighbors may not be aware of it. And the last time it happened, we made the dispatcher from the county or whatever it is, he didn't even know where Brookside was. So that's an issue. And the police are responsive and they come, but if they don't know, maybe when we do get a flash storm like that, they need to be, that should be one of the earliest spots that they would check.
Thank you. Steve, could we ask our engineering to take a look at how everything's functioning there? We'll get back to Mr. Holland. Yes.
Cecilia Donato, Ironia Road. Did I understand correctly, you're gonna have $50,000 worth of money for roads that you weren't gonna spend? So maybe you could pay for a road?
No.
No? Still no?
No.
You haven't spent it, what else are you gonna spend it on?
No, we used a small portion of road money, I'd say it was probably about $8,000 that was remaining. funding is coming from a variety of other sources in the operating budget, but it is not equal to what the overall amount is coming from that ordinance for roads for service.
So I'm not advocating fraud or anything, but couldn't you find some storm damage to my road that you could ask FEMA for money?
I would love to help.
Second thing, I'm sorry to come up here with my purse. I promised John I'd be home at 8:30. That's not going to happen. But I just, about this whole thing with what's going on with the mayors, I just have to say, with regard to all y'all, this is not you, it's not them, it's all y'all. You're all about 7th grade. That's what this, when Ms. Fairchild pointed out that perception is reality, that's the perception that's beginning to be created. And you got to get out of the 7th grade and become a college graduate. Okay?
And that is our intent, right? Where we're headed. Thank you.
And now I'm going home late.
Seeing no one else who wishes to be heard, we will move on with old business. We've been discussing potential nominations to the Pitney Farm Committee. I would like to suggest the following 6 people be added to that committee. My wife, June Chocatini, Sam's wife, Diane Talley, Ami Ryan, Tassos Canaderos, Bob Volk, and John Meister. I'd like to put forth
I'd like to have some discussion on that matter. I don't think,
first, Mr. Creed, can we have a motion, and then we can have discussion? Okay? Thank you. Do I have a motion to nominate these 6 people to the committee? Do I have a second?
second for purposes.
And now we can have discussions.
Okay. Again, this is a change. I haven't been able to read over all the resumes because I have been away. But I'm concerned in 2 areas, and it's just, again, the perceptions that were being talked about earlier. I think if we have 2 members of the Township Committee, relatives and members of the Township Committee, first thing, Mrs. Chocatini, very capable. I agree with her ideals on the library, and one of the forces that I think of for that property is for consideration of the library. I think you will find people having the perception that she would have an agenda going there that would not be appropriate, and that is my concern. I think she's a wonderful, hard-working lady, but I'm just concerned about the perception of being a member of the library board and being on this committee could be construed as a conflict of interest. And the other concern is, and it's just Diane, you're so busy. You're on the Environmental Commission, right? No, the Open Space, and you're on Recreation. I'm just concerned time-wise if it isn't too much for you, but I'm not. Okay, that's fine.
I'm
I'm
not
glad.
on open space.
Okay.
I'm the alternate, I believe, to open space.
All right.
but-
Fine. I'm just worried about time aspect. Thank you. That was my comments.
I'd like just like to comment, conflict of interest. Interesting. I think you might want to talk to my wife.
I can talk to you. Can't be done before.
Is there any other
table this
discussion?
on the next meeting then?
I'm not in favor of tabling it. We've been tabling this and putting it off for weeks.
It just came across my desk today when the agenda was changed at 4 o'clock this afternoon. That is a little bit surprised.
I can speak to Mr. Creed's concerns.
I think it would be appropriate.
Yeah, do you want me to speak? I mean, do you want me to speak to your concern about that?
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely. I would appreciate that.
My tenure with the library in my years will probably finish in December. I've served on that committee. My background is DAR. I'm regent of the local DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. My concern is that it's a revolutionary
You
war
just
property.
answered the question for me.
Okay.
You're leaving the library board at the end of the year?
Probably at the end of the year, I will be
Okay.
leaving
If that's the
library
case,
board.
I withdraw my objection. That would be my only area of objection. Other than that, I think you're eminently qualified.
Okay, thank you.
Frank and I talked very briefly, there are a few other people that were not selected this evening that we need to reach out to and talk to, make sure they're interested. We will do that, so we would probably assume that there could be additional people added,
That would be good.
as well as the fact that, this gives people an opportunity to think again if they'd like to serve on that committee, and we may get a few more people that are interested as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are probably not done adding members to that committee anytime, we hope. Probably some of the cycle also will go on. These 6 people have shown an interest. And as you may know, Mr. Creed, my wife raised the money and the volunteers to redo the gazebo over there, and has volunteered in some of the open houses.
My point in that area was strictly the library. It was no other area.
If there's no further discussion, there has been a motion, a second discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by a like sign. So moved.